Hey everybody, it's Johnny Two Face here, back with another reaction video. And this time I'm reacting to American Revolution, The Battle of Bunker Hill by Epic History. And 11 days ago would have been the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill, according to the part of the title I did not mention. So if you haven't reacted to my reaction to the first two episodes of this American Revolution series, I suggest you check them out before checking this one out. And sorry if you can hear my fan on in the background, because it is quite warm tonight. And yes, I am speaking here in the UK, in the southwest of England. But anyway, back to my point. My limited knowledge of Bunker Hill, where the Patriots, before they were called Americans, trying to retake Boston back from the British forces, but technically lost due to low ammunition and exhaustion. But again, limited knowledge. I'm about to learn the full details according to this video. So my usual disclaimer when I react to anything historical: if I don't show so much what is considered a proper reaction, it is probably obvious I don't know much about the subject at hand. If I do know anything, I'll most likely pause the video to give my input or ask any curious questions, which hopefully will be answered in the comments. With that being said, the link to the original video will be in the description down below. Please go and check out Epic History and hopefully subscribe and support their channel. And I hope everyone who goes to their channel enjoys it. So first things first. Full screen that. Bring it up. Captions on. And here we go.
April 1775. A British ship carries an urgent message across the Atlantic to the American colonies. Britain's Parliament has passed a conciliatory resolution.
Oh, was it
a last-ditch effort by Prime Minister Lord North to avert conflict with the colonies. Now that resolution is en route to America. It is a 6-week voyage. By the time it arrives, the shooting has started at Lexington and Concord.
That's the problem.
Blood has been spilled. The war has begun. Lord North's conciliatory resolution is met with defiance in colonial assemblies and the Continental Congress. Its terms, which do not concede Parliament's right to tax the colonies, offer far too little, too late.
Yeah. That's typical of politics in any era.
A reply from Congress, written by Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Richard Henry Lee, is a litany of unredressed grievances. The Coercive Acts, the Quebec Act, Vice Admiralty Courts, the list goes on. Negotiations are faltering, with fatal consequences. The fighting will continue, and is about to reach bloody new heights.
The fact that this is called Bunker Hill, I see what you did there, Epic History. Yep. These fellows say we won't fight. By heaven, I hope I shall die I shall die up to my knees in blood. Joseph Warren at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Sorry, itchy nose.
June 1775. The main British force in America is in Boston, commanded by General Thomas Gage. He has been reinforced to 6,000 regulars.
Oh, wow.
but he is besieged by 15,000 New England militia. These men are highly motivated and have proven capable in combat, but they lack discipline and ammunition. Prior to the arrival of their new commander-in-chief, George Washington, they are under the command of Artemus Ward, a sickly 47-year-old militia officer of limited experience. Nevertheless, under his direction, the militia have fortified the heights overlooking the Charlestown Peninsula.
Breeds Hill.
From these positions,
I should have also pointed out that my limited knowledge also, embarrassingly, also comes from a little bit from Assassin's Creed 3, where in the game, because it's based during the American War for Independence, you participate in the battles of Bunker and Breeds Hill. I know it's a game set in fiction based on historical events, but still. But it does show that it overlooks Boston and Charlestown. And but anyway, let's just get on with this.
cannon could target British ships in Boston's inner harbour. General Gage decides he must eliminate this threat and decides to seize the heights as a step to breaking the siege. It will be an opportunity not only to avenge British honour, tarnished by the shambolic retreat from Concord. As General Burgoyne points out, it will also allay any doubt
that trained troops are invincible against any numbers or any position of undisciplined rabble.
That's true up to a point, but if the numbers are overwhelming, that could actually go against what you just said. You better hope that these disciplined troops have enough ammunition to eliminate such a threat, and that their discipline is more than enough. Because with overwhelming numbers, you won't be able to take out all of the threat. But again,
Gage orders Major General William Howe to make a frontal assault on Breeds Hill with 2,500 men. They are supported by naval ships, a floating battery of mortars, and cannon from Copp's Hill. But the attack does not go to plan. Protected behind fences and earthworks, the undisciplined rabble pours a devastating, close-range fire into the British ranks.
Overestimating their ability.
General Howe orders a second attack. It meets the same bloody repulse. Hundreds of regulars fall. Some British units lose half their men or more. Spurred on by the leadership of John Stark, James Reed, and Joseph Warren, the Patriot militia are holding their ground. But they are running out of ammunition. The chain of command has broken down amid the chaos of battle. Hundreds of reinforcements mill about in confusion on Bunker Hill, while their comrades fight for their lives. When Howe launches a third attack on Breeds Hill, the militia finally break in the face of British bayonets. The Redcoats' fury as they storm the redoubt is terrible. A British lieutenant is shocked by the slaughter.
I cannot pretend to describe the horror of the scene. It was streaming with blood and strewed with dead and dying men. the soldiers stabbing some and dashing out the brains of others, was a sight too dreadful for me to dwell any longer on.
The British take the heights, but are in no condition to follow up their success. In what becomes known as the...
I don't know where it was actually quoted, like, Breed's Hill is closer to the city, but it was closer to the British artillery. And I think that's another thing that goes against them when they're being bombarded offshore by British ships.
Battle of Bunker Hill, they have lost 200 dead and more than 800 wounded. By contrast, Patriot casualties are around 450, but include the charismatic Joseph Warren, president of the Massachusetts Provincial Congress. A commissioned officer who'd insisted on fighting as a private soldier, he was shot down in the redoubt during the final assault, becoming a martyr to the cause. For the Patriots, the battle, though a defeat, is a major morale boost. They have stood their ground against British redcoats and tested them to the limit. For the British, it is a lesson learned. The rebels' determination and fighting spirit must be taken seriously. As General Sir Henry Clinton remarks,
A few more such victories would have shortly put an end to British dominion in America.
they will not.
I think I'm safe to say we can, judging how history has gone, we call that foreshadowing.
Make the same mistake again.
Many of our subjects in North America, misled by dangerous and ill-designing men, have at least proceeded to open and avowed rebellion. Oh God, that came from King George III, proclamation of the rebellion.
That summer, British authority across the 13 colonies begins to disintegrate.
No surprise there.
The governors of North and South Carolina, Virginia, New York, and New Hampshire have all been forced to flee their homes. Others resign, while in Connecticut, John Trumbull sides with the Patriots. Only in New Jersey and Georgia do British-appointed governors retain any control. The British have barely any troops in America outside of Boston, a fact which is underscored when frontiersman Ethan Allen leads a band of New Hampshire militia to storm Fort Ticonderoga, held by a skeleton force of just 48 redcoats. The so-called Gibraltar of North America falls without a shot fired, and the rebels seize 59 heavy guns from its arsenal.
Yeah, that's what happens when you don't take such a threat seriously. But the fact that's one hell of an achievement to take a fort that's supposed to be now impregnable without a shot, even with a skeleton force, is impressive.
Yet even now, there are those on both sides who seek a peaceful way out of the crisis. Moderates, like John Dickinson of Pennsylvania, believe the colonies are too divided among themselves to survive without British protection. He foresees
a multitude of commonwealths, crimes, and calamities, centuries of mutual jealousies, hatreds, wars of devastation. till at last the exhausted provinces shall sink into slavery under the yoke of some fortunate conqueror.
Some cling to a belief that King George III is sympathetic to their cause, but has been led astray by his dishonest and corrupt ministers. In July, at Dickinson's urging, the Second Continental Congress...
Yeah, kind of hard, because I think King George III was known as the Mad King. But again, that's just a rumour.
...sends a new petition to the king.
We solemnly assure your majesty that we most ardently desire the former harmony between Great Britain and these colonies may be restored. Your majesty's ministers, persevering in their measures and proceeding to open hostilities for enforcing them, have compelled us to arm in our own defense. We therefore beseech your majesty to settle peace through every part of your dominions, with all humility, submitting to your majesty's wise consideration.
It becomes known as the Olive Branch Petition.
Well, it's not... When it comes to corruption, it's not just the person you're thinking about, like, for example, King George III. It's the people who surround him, like the ministers.
But it is beaten to London by news and maimed British soldiers from Bunker Hill. In August, George III declares his American colonies to be in open rebellion.
Yeah.
The British Empire begins to assemble its might to reclaim the colonies by force.
His Excellency General Washington has arrived amongst us, universally admired. Joy was visible on every countenance. General Nathaniel Greene.
On the 2nd of July, 1775, General George Washington arrives outside Boston to take command of the newly christened Continental Army. Until recently, he'd been living a relatively quiet life as a Virginia plantation owner and local representative. But his military experience from the French and Indian War, serving as a lieutenant colonel of militia, exceeds that of nearly any other American-born officer. Through an advantageous marriage to Martha Custis, he is also one of the richest men in America, with a natural air of authority. Dr. Benjamin Rush, a congressional delegate from Pennsylvania, observes,
"He has so much martial dignity in his deportment that you would distinguish him to be a general and a soldier from among 10,000 people."
On arrival, Washington discovers the Continental Army to be in a deplorable state. Many soldiers lack proper muskets, and ammunition remains in critically short supply. There are few cannon or even uniforms. Supply and logistics are in shambles. Discipline is virtually non-existent. The camp is a jumble of tents, ill-placed latrines, and unfinished earthworks. Officers fraternize with their men, who simply come and go as they please. Washington is aghast, but immediately gets to work. Officers are given sashes or cockades to distinguish them from their men. Severe punishments are introduced for desertion, fighting, and even swearing. Crucially, Washington orders his men be inoculated for smallpox, which has erupted across Massachusetts. This practice, also used by the British, may have saved his army from destruction.
Yeah, that's the one thing that people forget. George Washington, even though he was born in America, he did actually, for a while, as it showed in a previous video, had a stint serving in the British Army. So he would have knowledge of, like, how some of the, you know, not just the fighting, but the other things like medical and logistics. So why not use the why not use this knowledge?
The Continental Congress has appointed several generals to serve under Washington's overall command, for a mix of practical, military, and political reasons. Some will win fame, others infamy, in the years ahead. Nathaniel Greene, a young Rhode Island Quaker, who's educated himself in the art of war. He will become a close friend of Washington and his most able commander. Charles Lee, an irascible and arrogant career soldier, disillusioned with the mother country. He is arguably the most experienced officer in the colonies, and Washington's second in command. Israel Putnam, a veteran in command.
Aid to the King
Israel
of Poland.
Putnam, a veteran soldier from Connecticut, nicknamed Old Put. He served with distinction in the French and Indian War, and more recently at Bunker Hill. John Sullivan, an aggressive New Hampshire officer who had previously served in the Continental Congress. Horatio Gates, another disillusioned British officer, capable but privately contemptuous of Washington. These men and their officers must now pull together an unruly army summoned from across the colonies. From independent-minded New Englanders to equally stubborn riflemen from Virginia and Pennsylvania, each man with more instinctive loyalty to his colony than to any shared cause. However, Washington's greatest concern is a lack of gunpowder. By one estimate, there's enough for each man to fire just 9 rounds. This, together with the challenges of supply and discipline, means he can do little more than hold the fortifications around Boston. Fortunately for the Continental Army, the British have problems of their own. Boston is riddled with smallpox. Most British soldiers have been inoculated or exposed to the disease, though some still fall sick. Bostonians themselves suffer much more greatly. Of greater concern, now they are bottled up in Boston, is that British supply lines now stretch more than 3,000 miles back across the Atlantic to Britain. British ships are now vulnerable to American privateers and the first vessels of a fledgling continental navy. The supply situation in Boston becomes critical, with starvation a growing fear. That the British find themselves in this predicament is widely blamed on General Gage's leadership. He is recalled to London, and command passes to General William Howe. But under the present circumstances, there is little he can do to change British fortunes.
Yeah. Well, you think if the Americans cut all the supplies, even the one to Britain, then all they got to do is wait out the British forces trapped in Boston. But that would only work if they cut the last line of supply, which is by sea. And at this time, Britain is still supreme at sea. And I know this is set before Cape Trafalgar. If that man's not crushed before spring, he'll become the most formidable enemy America has. George Washington about Lord Dunmore.
As the siege of Boston drags on, in Virginia, Governor Lord Dunmore holes up in Norfolk under the protection of Royal Navy warships. From here, he comes up with a plan to crush the rebellion in Virginia. Across the southern colonies, roughly half the population are enslaved black men, women, and children. Most work on plantations, where they are treated with appalling brutality. As a result, the white population's greatest fear is a mass slave revolt. In November 1775, Lord Dunmore attempts to turn this fear into reality.
I do require every person capable of bearing arms to resort to His Majesty's standard, or be looked upon as traitors. And I do hereby farther declare all indented servants, Negroes, or others, free, that are able and willing to bear arms, they joining His Majesty's troops as soon as may be.
It is a direct appeal to Virginia's slaves. Freedom for those who take up arms against their rebel masters. Nothing could be more incendiary. Few patriots consider the cause of liberty to extend to enslaved black Americans. And in the South, Dunmore's proclamation threatens the destruction of the entire economy and society itself. Without irony, patriots condemn Dunmore's promise of freedom as a violation of all law, justice, and humanity.
Wow.
To Washington, he is the arch traitor to the rights of humanity. Within a month, 300 escaped slaves have reached Dunmore's base in Norfolk, where they form the new Royal Ethiopian Regiment. Thousands more will seek freedom behind the British lines before the war is over. The price of Dunmore's proclamation is to turn southern landowners into mortal enemies of the British cause. Norfolk is a loyalist stronghold, but unable to secure supplies for his forces, Dunmore decides to abandon it. In the process, on New Year's Day 1776, Norfolk burns to the ground. Both sides blame the other. It is the largest, but not the last, settlement.
I definitely don't know Norfolk burning to the ground. But yeah, there's definitely going to be tit for tat on who's to blame here.
To be destroyed in the war.
Our pity our good general who has a greater burden on his shoulders and more difficulties to struggle with than I think should fall to the shore of so good a man. James Warren to John Adams.
That winter, the standoff continues at Boston, with conditions deteriorating for both sides. Life in the American camp is miserable.
We have suffered prodigiously for want of wood. Many regiments have been obliged to eat their provisions raw for want of firing to cook. And notwithstanding, we have burned up all the fences and cut down all the trees for a mile around the camp. Our suffering has been inconceivable.
Wow.
The only good news comes at sea, where American privateers continue to intercept British ships carrying food and supplies. On the 29th of November, they score their biggest prize yet, the brig Nancy, carrying 2,000 muskets and ammunition. But Washington faces another looming crisis. Most of his men have signed up to fight only until the end of 1775. And given the conditions, few plan to stay any longer. December brings heavy snow and the expiry of the first enlistments. Despite the pleading, threats, and curses of their officers, almost half of Washington's men pack up and march for home. They take with them not only their muskets and equipment, but their hard-won experience. Washington is distraught. By January 1776, his force has been reduced to less than half its summer peak.
Wow.
There are now just 9,000 men under his command. But General Howe's forces are not in much better shape. The British are even considering evacuating Boston. Then, later that month, shocking news arrives in the American camp, carried in pamphlets and letters. King George III has addressed Parliament on the subject of America. From the King's own lips, the Patriots hear their cause condemned as a desperate conspiracy, whose ideas are repugnant to the true constitution of the colonies. He lays all blame for the conflict on the Americans. He promises an overwhelming military response. In that moment, the Patriots' last lingering hopes of reconciliation die.
Yeah.
To Americans like General Nathaniel Greene, it's nothing short of betrayal.
Heaven hath decreed that tottering empire Britain to irretrievable ruin. And thanks to God, since Providence hath so determined, America must raise an empire of permanent duration, supported upon the grand pillars of truth, freedom, and religion, encouraged by the smiles of justice, and defended by her own patriotic sons.
For Washington, it's the final nail in the coffin of relations with Great Britain.
We are determined to shake off all connections with a state so unjust and unnatural. This I would tell them, not under covert, but in words as clear as the sun in its meridian brightness.
Until now, many patriots have shied away from calls for independence. But the mood has changed. The King's open hostility, the provocations of Lord Dunmore, the blood shed at Bunker Hill.
That'll do it.
Only a full break from Britain will answer. But Britain is preparing to fight back. Do you enjoy Epic History videos and want to support our work? Then make sure you check out our Patreon page for new episodes, production updates, and exclusive perks.
And now that looks like the end of the video, so that's been another great episode it's another great episode in this series by Epic History, and again, did great work, and it puts the finer details about the battles of Bunker and also Breed's Hill. So, but it just also shows the problems on both sides, especially with the British forces in Boston. and the politics around the Americans surrounding Boston as well. So I hope you enjoyed this reaction. If you liked this reaction, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.